Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where we are currently, well, first let's check mission control. Polar orbit of Eve, Ike, plant flag on Duna. Well, we're gonna do that. We'll go ahead and grab that one. Science data from surface of Vol for 40 years. We'll get there eventually. And other than that, we seem to be good. So we are then going to be planning our landing on the surface of Duna, and we might actually launch that mission this episode. We'll see. First things first. We have 2,300 science to spend. We have most everything we want. These things here are frankly irrelevant to this playthrough. So that's 2,100 science that we don't need to spend. We can grab both of these. Narrowband scanners, large holding tanks, kind of irrelevant. I mean, RCL01 would be potentially handy. We'll go ahead and grab it. And then otherwise, we would just need to fill out the science tree. So 2,000 more science and we'll be good. That'll be fine. We should, I think, have that from landing on Duna. Or very close to it. One or the other. Okay, so this is going to be definitely the most complicated mission that we have done yet. So let's go ahead and open up the Snedgus Mark V lander as our base. So this monstrosity is what we used for Ike. The next thing we need to consider for this is, does this thing have a thrust to weight ratio on Duna? And the answer is no. This thing cannot take off on Duna as is. Okay. So with that being the case, what we're going to need to do is we are going to need to detach at the heat shield level here. Except before we do that, I want to grab all of these side boosters and quad couple them on the actual heat shield if we can, or the radial decoupler. Oh, that's awkward. Maybe what we need to do is separate at the heat shield right here and add in a small module that we can actually attach to, a simple structural one. So something along the lines of an octagonal strut if they had a big one. What could we do? A structural tube? I have no idea what that's used for. That's way too big. That's too big? Something along the lines of that. I have no idea what you're supposed to do with those cubes. Or cubes. With those tubes. But I am... It's awkward angling for sure. Okay, let's see about rotating this, shall we? We probably need to not have the snap-on in that case. I really hate this. Yeah, I really, really hate this. Let's go ahead and just pull off our boosters down here. KSP, you okay? You okay, KSP? Yeah, KSP's okay. Let's pull off at this decoupler. And we'll come back to our primary booster. But for right now, let's just remove these. We're going to start over on that. Same with the atomic rocket motor. We've got this nice decoupler here and this heat shield. That's fine. We're going to go ahead and pull those off. Remove the structural tube. And we're going to start with simply this. This is what we land with. So, in that case, well, no, we're going to be landing with this. This is what we land with. We will be bringing along this decoupler and this heat shield. Just because we don't really have much of an option. And then we are going to want a docking port senior, probably. and then connect together our docking ports. It's going to be awkward. Awkward for sure. And then down here, we would want, say, a nuclear engine. Or would we? Do we want this to be inline? Maybe we do. Hypothetically, how much delta V do we get at Duna? Well, how much delta V do we get with an X232 with no oxidizer in it, and then just a nuclear engine? I realize this won't have thrust to weight. Actually, the thrust to weight isn't terrible. But that has 40-50 vacuum delta V. This is doable. This could theoretically get us home. Okay. With that being the case, if we detach this here, actually, put it back on, slap this guy on here. Now, obviously, this is non-ideal for a number of reasons. One of which being, we're going to have some kind of wacky physics going on. So we're going to definitely need some struts connecting here to here, or so. Some of those didn't go. Only one went. It's unfortunate. From there to there? Yeah, that connects. Okay. So now, let's do a real fast simulation here. And let's launch this thing. I want to see how exactly these docking ports are working, if they're working at all. It's quite possible that they're not working at all, because I think we have to turn one facing one way and the other facing the other way. But, I guess we'll see. Can't really tell. Okay, I need you out of the way there, MechJeb. Okay, looks like they are in fact working. That's pretty excellent. Okay, let's revert that back to vehicle assembly then. Assuming that that's working, then we should have ourselves our return stage here, or just about. I do want to tack on a small amount of extra fuel. So, like a, rather than, like, just slap on an extra X216 right here. Like so. Reason being, we're going to add a little bit more weight to this thing. So that's about 4,000 delta V there. So that actually, oh, that's because we have oxidizer in there. That should do the trick. 5,000 delta V. Excellent. Now, just to be on the safe side, I do want to toss on a remote guidance unit. Okay, and this thing does have a reaction wheel built into it, so that'll help our control authority a little bit. That brings us down to 5k delta V. That will be plenty for this stage to be able to do any orbital maneuvers and get us home. That'll be more than enough. So now all we need to do is get this pod up here, or more specifically, this construct right here. All we need to do is get this here able to land on the Dunan surface and return home. Now the best way to do that, in my opinion, or, well, not return home, be able to land on the Dunan surface and then achieve orbit. We don't really care what orbit, just an orbit. So the best way for us to do that, in my opinion, is probably, in fact, going to be what we've done before, and have ourselves some radial decouplers out here. And let's go ahead and snap angle. Like so. Okay, with those there, that should be fine. I believe they are attached to the decoupler, so when the decoupler detaches, they'll go as well. That's fine. That's just fine. And then we need some small fuel tanks. Something like some quad T400s. Like so. And then the question is, what engines do we want to use? Well, we're in Duna here, so we need to make sure we have a slightly over 1.0 thrust-to-weight ratio. I think roughly around a 1.2. 4 spiders are probably not going to cut it. No. So if 4 spiders aren't going to cut it, let's see about 4 cubs. 4 cubs are overkill. Okay, so thrust of 40 kilonewtons in vacuum, thrust of 16, so twitches might be better for us here. 1.45? I think that's good. 6 minutes of burn, that should be enough. That should get us there. And I'm going to call this the Snedgis Mark 6 lander, just so that there's no confusion. So that should get us there, and now we just need a way to land. So I'm just going to, this is going to be kind of terrible looking, but I'm just going to toss on some modular girder segments on the bottom like we've done before, and then just some LT2 landing struts. And we'll just mount them like so. Oh, that didn't go where I wanted it to. We'll just mount them right about there. And we'll start them retracted. My main concern right now is that the landing struts might, heavy on the might, be burned off by the liquid fuel engines. So what if instead... What if instead we angled the legs a little bit? Or stuck them over like this? It'd be a little weird. We would land like that. That's definitely weird. But maybe fine? I don't know. I kind of hate it. What I would prefer is something along the lines of this, except inset or something. Have the liquid fuel engines be mounted more up here, or have the fuel engines be mounted down here and have these landing legs up above them. If this impacts the ground, they're probably going to die like that. So what I'm kind of thinking is maybe put them more up here. That way they're basically guaranteed to not impact the ground, although I want them to be more centrally positioned. They're basically guaranteed to not impact the ground up here because the segments will impact first. The legs should be able to stop most of it. Can we move these down at all? Nope, they're as down as they get. Okay, that's fine. Okay. Well, there we have it. On Duna, we've got a 1.37 thrust-to-weight ratio. On Kerbal, we do not lift off, but that's fine. Otherwise, we just keep flying all of this. We bring along an engineer so that we can repack our drogue chutes. We should probably, well, not even just drogue chutes, but all chutes. We should probably, I want to be in place mode. We should probably go ahead and turn these as far down and as far up for altitude as we can. There we go. And I'm going to do, actually, I'm not going to do the same thing on these radial mount parachutes. This is a lot of parachutes, and we also have decent thrust to weight on these twitch engines. So I think we're fine. So if we go ahead and do that, and then we put this guy in right here, we have 14,000 delta V. And if we have enough to do our maneuvering with this stage when we're rendezvousing back up, that's great. That's just a bonus. If we still have anything in the tank after we rendezvous up here, we'll burn off this first and then decouple these and then head home with this. Otherwise, we will be burning off... We will be detaching these before we hook up, probably. If we can. Okay, let's check our staging. That's going to be super important here. So, all the way down at the bottom. Oh my. We're in the ground a little bit. Let's go ahead and move this guy up. There we go. And all the way down here, we should have our 4 giant mainsail engines, plus our center stack engine. Excellent. And then as we go up, our side boosters detach. And then our main booster detaches, and our nuclear engines fire. And this currently has all of our twitch engines firing in that stage. We're gonna move that up to stage 0 for now. So our maneuvering stage fires here. I suppose at this point we can call this our interplanetary transfer stage. And then up here, this would then fire, and these would detach at the same time. That should be substantially up further. Like, we're going to want to do most of those things manually with that stage up there. So we're going to go ahead and stick this in a new stage 0, and we're going to have our liquid fuel engines firing in that stage. And then in stage 1, our radial decouplers. Like that. Something along those lines. And that decoupler should not happen automatically, like ever. That would mess us up pretty badly. Okay, let's just double check this, make sure that we're flight ready. So far so good. And then we get up here, this is our interplanetary transfer stage, detaching and firing. Yep. And then our maneuvering stage, detaching and firing. I guess you could call it our return stage. Then our drogue chutes. Then our main chutes. Then our landing engines. Then our landing engine fuel tank detachments. Then our final re-entry detachment. Okay, we're good. Let's call that the Snedgus Mark 6 lander. And finally, I want to run one final test. And in order to do this quickly, like I said, this is a test, and we're not going to be doing this in any sort of finality. But one thing that I would very much like to do here is just teleport this ship into orbit and make sure that the docking is working like I'm expecting it to. I've had issues with it before in the past, so I'm just going to go ahead and pull up the debug toolbar, go into, where is it? I know it's here somewhere. Cheats, set orbit, Kerbal. This is fine. Just jump up into space with this thing. And let's go ahead and fire off... Well, let's go ahead and fire off this decoupler here. There we go. That's a little bit better. And now I just want to check here. So far so good. And if we decouple either of these nodes, we should be fine. Okay, we are lifting off here. Oh, look at that. It's actually detaching up here. So I guess we want to decouple this node instead. Let's revert that back to launch. Cheat back up to this orbit and see if that is in fact working the way I think it is. So let's pop back open this, set that orbit. It's completely fine. And then let's decouple right here just to get us up to this stage. And let's try decoupling this bottom docking port. Well, one thing I am noticing is we don't have any RCS. Let's go ahead and activate these engines. Okay, so that did decouple it as I was anticipating. Fantastic. Revert back to vehicle assembly. We don't have any RCS on this thing. So we are currently completely unable to reattach. And here's the thing that I'm thinking. If I detach this right here, you see how this has a docking port here and this doesn't? I'm kind of thinking we need to be putting it in like this. And then dock them together like that. And then the other thing that we might need is some RCS. So in order to make that happen, let's go ahead and put on a little bit of monopropellant, probably in these radial tanks, like we've done before. So 0.1 tons of monopropellant. We'll put it on both modules. Something along the lines of that. And then we will go ahead and place some... where's command and control? Here we go. Some RCS thruster blocks. Just so that we can actually do some more interesting docking maneuvers than just flying at each other head first. I find that usually helps. One thing we might want to do, I don't know, offset this a little bit like that. Okay. Something along the lines of that. RCS burn time of 2 minutes 47 seconds. Okay. Well, I think we're ready for a real launch, maybe. Like I said, this is definitely going to be the most complicated mission we've done yet, since we're going to be leaving this in orbit and then rendezvousing back with it. And then we've got the RCS on there. Theoretically, we should be able to fire these and get back into orbit with them if we are on Duna. Our delta V for this stage is 1100. We're now looking at a thrust to weight of 0.91. Good thing I just checked. The extra bits and bobs that we added up here made it so that we don't actually have the thrust to weight to take off with these twitches. Okay, so with that being the case, what is our next most powerful of our engines that we can put on the outside here? Not a spider, that's for sure. Thuds are 120 kilonewtons. That is kind of extreme. Puffs just use monopropellant. That's not really what we're looking for here. I mean, the other thing that we could theoretically do is we could put, like, a twitch here and a twitch here. Well, up here and up here, or thereabouts. Move this down slightly to be right about there. We could do that. And on Duna, then, stage 2, where are these engines? Down in stage 6. No thanks. We're going to place them up here. These will be in stage 0 for now. So now we have 1.78 delta V here, or thrust to weight ratio. The same exact delta V, but our time to burn was cut in half. Okay. Something along those lines-ish. And I think we're going to go ahead and stick these down here so that we can fire those a little bit more quickly. Of course, the other option is if we've got the twitch here that has 16 kilonewtons, I think. KER is covering it. Yeah, 16 kilonewtons. The question then becomes, do we have 2 of those or 1 cub? Well, let's find out, huh? 2.57, or 2 minutes, basically 3 minutes of burn time. What happens if we replace these 2, with a single cub? Well, for one thing, cubs are a lot larger. So there is that. If we place the cub, like, right there, and then move the cubs from here all the way back up to stage 3. There isn't a stage 3 there. We'll make them one. 2.36, 2 minutes 36 seconds. I mean, thrust to weight is certainly higher. We could always slap on an extra pair of tanks. Well, not a pair of tanks, but an extra, like, T200 or something. That is a possibility. That does cut our total delta V substantially. However, it does bear noting that we're going to be bringing this back with these tanks empty. Or rather, not attached at all. So this will actually have substantially higher delta V here in stage 4 than is being reported. I think it'll still be fine. So we go ahead and do that. And the last thing I want to do is add in some strut connectors. Here. And here. And I think we're ready-ish to go. However, I'm going to go ahead and put a cut in here, and next episode will be the maiden journey of this monster. See you all then.